Coming to the northern area of Israel, I see that everything centers around the Sea of Galilee. Back in the time of Jesus, that was also true, since the sea provided commerce and life to the residents. I wanted to experience this body of water Jesus traveled to and even walked upon, to understand what the sea revealed about Jesus' faith. The Sea of Galilee plays such an important role in the life of Jesus. Many important towns sit on the sea: Tabgha, Capernaum, Bethsaida, and Kursi, places where Jesus administered. But it was the sea itself where Jesus taught about peace. Two incidents described on the Sea of Galilee help us to understand the life of Jesus and how he faced difficulties. The first story tells of Jesus and his apostles crossing over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee by boat. The group was so tired that Jesus himself decided to take a nap on a nice soft cushion in the boat's stern. That's when the perfect storm struck, and waves began to sweep over the side of the boat. I talked to a local fisherman about the violent storms that strike this area.
It is danger. This lake is danger. Without any worrying or something, immediately you get wind from 65 knots and up immediately.
Have you been frightened being a fisherman out during a storm on the sea?
If I've been, yeah. You must pray to God to come back to the shore.
Because of the storm, the disciples panicked and they woke Jesus. Jesus replied, "You of so little faith, why are you so upset?" Then he rebuked the wind. "Quiet, be still." And the sea returned to calm. The fishermen were amazed at how suddenly the place returned to calm. A storm to a fisherman meant death, but for Jesus it meant an opportunity to catch up on some sleep. It's quite a difference. In the second story, Jesus sent his disciples in a boat across to Bethsaida while he stayed on the shore to pray. A strong wind struck the boat and the waters grew rough. Jesus finished praying and took a stroll across the lake. As if a storm wasn't frightening enough, here comes a man walking on water. Then Mark 6:48 uses the phrase, "He was about to pass them." Really? I must imagine Jesus whistling as he passes by, giving a casual hello as he happens upon the struggling sailors. "Some weather we're having," Jesus hums along. The disciples were sweating and straining. The vision of a man walking on water really unnerved them. It's a Twilight Zone moment for sure. But Peter, now intrigued by Jesus' ability to overcome storms, asked to join Jesus for a peaceful walk on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus invited him to step out of the boat, but when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me!" Again, Jesus used those words, "You who have so little faith." Now, we must understand these great bodies of water were considered evil by people in those days. In fact, they called the seas the abyss because the waters underneath were mysterious, unexplored areas where people were sucked into and drowned.
It is quite an interesting contrast that water represents life or life-giving, but it also represents death.
And here comes Jesus walking over death. He rises above death, saving those who are drowning from the worries of this world. While the disciples faced storms, Jesus experienced calm. Now, when does panic set in? Panic only sees the current situation, the wind and the waves. Faith sees the future. Panic recognizes our own limitations. Faith trusts the one with all the power. Now, if you could have one attribute of Jesus, what would it be? The power to heal, to multiply food, to walk on water? I'd have to say if there was one thing about Jesus that I would most desire, it would be the way he calmly faced life, his faith. So where did Jesus find that faith? Maybe it's found in the one activity he was engaged in before walking on water. Mark 6 says before he walked on the sea, he prayed. Prayer helped him find peace before the storm.
Jesus needed prayer as a human being like all of us do. He prayed before great events. He prayed after great events. He prayed on the cross several times. He prayed before his temptation. He prayed after his temptation. He needed prayer. We all need prayer because prayer is communion with God.
Prayer is a conversation inside of a relationship. And that is so important. This helpless dependence that we experience, the uncertainty of life. Jesus didn't know everything. He wasn't omniscient. He wasn't omnipresent. He wasn't any of those things. He did not draw upon that. He is a human being in helpless dependence upon the presence and the life of the Father.
So he needed it the way any human being needs prayer, and set the perfect example for us.
Prayer is like breathing. You know, he's praying all the time.
The disciples recognized something about Jesus that was different, and they wanted it, and so they asked for it. The Bible says in Luke 11:1 that one day Jesus was praying in a certain place. When he finished, one of the disciples said, "Lord, teach us how to pray," just as John taught his disciples how to pray. Of all the qualities he could have asked for, healing, wisdom, and walking on water, they asked him how to pray. Jesus needed prayer to reconnect with the other two members of the Godhead. I imagine this physical body felt the tug away from the spiritual all the time. And Jesus needed to center himself, reprioritize, submit this flesh before he faced the day. Maybe he just needed quiet, a result of sensory overload and a stressful agenda. The apostles saw him spend so much time in prayer, and they correlated with the peaceful way he faced life. So they desired that attitude in themselves. The best way to calm the waters, I see, is to get close to the one who can calm the waters. If you want peace, install a peacemaker in your heart. People are attracted to those who can find calm during the storm.